have this invitation station behind us. Each drawer has some little tools in them, and in one drawer has blocks, so yoga blocks. There's a couple of them. This is a nicer looking block, cork block, a little heavier and harder. This is a little kinder if you feel like the cork block is a little bit too firm or too heavy, so this foam block has a little bit more give. But I like blocks for various amount of things. I'm going to give 3 ways that I like to use blocks just in a regular everyday sort of movement, not if you're doing a yoga class, because they can be used in different ways in yoga classes. But for here, I'm going to do a heart opener, an assisted forward seated bend just to work on a hip hinge, and one of my favorites, a hip flexor release, so also called a psoas release. So the heart opener, you can do the block you could do 3 ways really, but like this is flatter here, so not as high. You could do the block here if you felt like you had a little more flexibility. Oh, heaven forbid you would do it this way, but you need some more props to probably support your head. You'd probably be a 5-year-old child if you were doing this. But let's start here and see what this feels like, because I'm going to actually grab out to the side here, just in case. There's also a place for blankets, just in case my head isn't flat on the ground. So putting the block, this would land in the middle of your shoulder blades. So I would be lying down, and I'm actually going to start with my knees bent and orient the block. The top of the block, I'm feeling at the top of my shoulder blades. And if I move this out of the way, my head will still nicely touch the ground, but I'm also paying attention to what my neck feels like and where it is in this moment in time. And I'm actually feeling that maybe supporting it with a little bit of lift is nice in this moment. My hands are out to the side. You could, if you felt like you wanted a little bit more release through the hip flexors, straighten out the legs, but that's again based on what your body is telling you in this moment. And then I would suggest paying attention to an open breath through ribs, side ribs, front ribs, and upper chest. And giving yourself, I would say 1 to 3 minutes here, just to listen to yourself breathe. And open up your heart and your pecs and the front of your throat and neck. Okay, so that would be my number 1. I'm going to roll off to the side here for back. So that's one way I would use the block. Second way I would use the block is putting it underneath your butt bones. So often we don't do forward seated bend well. I know when I was a young yogi and could hinge and can still probably touch my toes, but what would happen is I would start to go here. And this is really hard on the back. Longevity of hips and back means a nice hip hinge, meaning that we're not bending from the back per se, but we're hinging from our hips. So this helps to elevate the hips, especially if you sit a lot. And I like to put my hands sort of at my hips. And once I start to feel myself do this, I stop. So hands at your hips, lengthen up from the top of the head, and hinge from the hips. It's hard to say if I can still feel it. I feel like I'm still good. Inhale, lift, hinge from the hips. I don't get very far. That's okay. I can feel it through the hamstrings. That's all I need to feel it. You don't need to go down and touch your toes. Your head doesn't need to be at your knees. This is like, I'm getting an amazing hamstring stretch here, and I'm working on good functional mobility through the hips. Okay, so that's number 2, how I would like to use this block. Number 3 is one of my favorites because it's one of those passive, I do nothing sort of poses. So it's just an elevated bridge If you've ever done a bridge before, it can be active this way because I'm using muscle to lift me up. When I get sort of real lazy yoga, I elevate my hips and just hang out here. And if somebody put a blanket on me, that would be the bomb. But otherwise, it is a really quick way to get your body to a calm state. So your parasympathetic system, your relaxing part of your nervous system kicks in. And if you just, again, lay here and took some breaths as you did in the heart opener and really just let your body take over. It really also feels great for the low back and sacrum area, the pelvic area. So those are my top 3 for using the blocks. Hopefully you also enjoy them as I just did.